hearing on the 2022 representation review arrangements. So the report is under hearings in your diligent for those that are looking for where that is based. I've got an apology, just to remind everyone that we are on live stream audio this afternoon. And I have apologies from Councillor Blackie and Councillor Stewart. Someone prepared to move. Moved Councillor Bryan, seconded Councillor Williams. I'll put the apologies. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, declare that carried. We are, members of the public are here, we are required to wear our face masks. Councillor Ward has an exemption for not wearing one, so just to advise that. Any conflicts of interest? None to be declared. So we come firstly to the hearing of submissions to the representation review, and we have with us Rhonda Mather. Rhonda, I wonder if you could come forward. It's good to see you here. Welcome to our meeting. So up to 10 minutes, and there may be some questions that come from colleagues. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lovely to be here in this lovely new room you've got going on. It looks great. Okay, so I'm not going to keep you terribly long. I just want to highlight one particular thing. So we've come a long way since the controversial 2015 review, and I learned a lot about local government representation at that time, and that's largely why I care enough to be sitting here today. It won't come as news to you that there are 4 councillors covering the Kaiapoi Wood End ward. I'm here to emphasise the need to have a councillor specifically representing the Wood End Sefton Community Board area around the council table. I know all councillors are expected to represent all areas. I also know that most councillors know their own area best. While the current system allows for a resident of the Wood End Sefton area to be elected as a councillor, their chances of becoming elected are slim unless they have a high profile in the Kaiapoi area. Population figures used in the current representation review show that the total population for the Kaiapoi Wood End ward is 24,900, that being 15,650 for the Kaiapoi Tuahiwi Community Board area and 9,240 for the Wood End Sefton Community Board area. That becomes something of an imbalance when a candidate from the Wood End Sefton area has to compete for votes against people in and around the more highly populated Kaiapoi area. I've sat in on a variety of council and board meetings over the past 6 years or so, and have regularly been shocked to hear how little some councillors know about the area they represent. And I don't mean that as an insult or a generalisation. It's an observation that I find disturbing, and as a voter leaves me feeling underrepresented around the council table at times. Obviously, there are no guarantees, regardless of where the candidate comes from or the area they have been elected to represent. As with all occupations, there will be varying degrees of how effective and involved councillors are. My point is that as a resident of the Pegasus Wood End area, I want my vote to go to a local resident who I know is knowledgeable and involved when it comes to local matters. I want my vote to count. And that's all I've got to say today. So thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Rhonda. Very clear submission. Any questions? Councillor Barnett.
So, Rhonda, what relief are you seeking in your submission? What do you want to have happen?
Well, to be honest, it's not something I'm really expecting is going to be able to happen this time around. I'm kind of giving a heads up for in the future. You can wave your magic wand and make it happen this time, be great. But I'm seeking for a councillor who specifically is elected for the Wood End Sefton board area.
So you're looking at the subdivision and wanting 1 representative there and 3.
I would imagine you're not going to go 2 and 2 from a population point of view, so sure. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah. Do you, in your submission, you've said that councillors do the whole of Waimakariri. Is that not the role to represent your area of a community board and pass that on to one of the councillors? And that's the reason why community boards were set up, I understand, for their area and community, and that should be represented in that area and then passed on to a councillor, or are you indicating you should get rid of the community boards and just have a councillor for the area?
No, nice try, Paul. Absolutely not advocating to get rid of anybody's community board. But what I'm saying is, and I'm sure you will know, that having your bum around this table is a more effective voice to be able to pass on what the community board or someone else might have told you, or just to be able to represent your community full stop. It's far more effective to have that person around this table. But I'm not in any way saying we don't need community boards or trying to lessen the effect of their role. They do a great job, in my opinion, all of them.
Thank you. Further questions? Well, thank you, Rhonda, for your time. We appreciate your reflections, and they will be taken into account when we come to deliberate further in the piece. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Always appreciate the opportunity to have my wee say, and I'm just going to sit over here and have a wee listen now. So
Thanks, Rhonda. All right, so we now come to the report, item 4, which is contained within the hearing report. So, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report I will take as read clearly spells out where we have got to at this point in time, and a more full report will come to the Council on the 2nd of November. We had 6 weeks of consultation for the representation review, including a period when the Three Waters consultation was out, so we had additional foot traffic through the web pages. However, we do acknowledge that it is a relatively low number of submissions, with 15 being received. These submissions do generally reflect the evidence and conversations from earlier in the year, with taking a pragmatic approach to the electoral arrangements for the October 22 election, with the majority supporting the status quo. Regarding the feedback suggesting abolishing of subdivisions, as you're aware, these effectively aid representation, helping avoid dominance of urban areas, particularly for our rural areas, to the election point in time. And then as soon as the election is actually over, that subdivision line effectively is erased, as all members of a community board are consulting on all of the issues that are put before them. So I have nothing further to add at this time, and welcome any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Any questions? All right, we've got a series of... Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy, pardon me.
Just a clarification, please, Sarah. With this at the moment, and there's no changing, is there likely that you could have another election next time after the elections? Can you relook at your representation review?
Legally, we have to do a review every 6 years, but
Right.
you can do it every 3. We will be strongly recommending to the incoming council that in February 23, we look at doing another representation review. By then we will have potentially better census data, better growth data on actual people in houses in our high growth areas, and also we will have a better direction of the local government reforms coming and how that may impact on any future elections. So this primarily is looking at next year's elections, with decisions confirmed by the Local Government Commission by April of next year. And then we'll have a review and see where we need to go for the 2025 elections.
Thank you, you've answered my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Sarah. How does the recent government decision to potentially extend our term by up to 1 year affect your representation review in 2023?
Certainly doesn't make any impact at this stage. It is only a discussion with the government. There have been waves over the years of 3 terms, 4 terms, 4-year terms. Nothing's legislated yet. There's a lot of conversation to occur. So we'll cross that bridge once we actually know what legislation involves at that time.
Any further questions?
So do we need to commit to a review now
No,
in 2023, or can that be
No.
a decision?
that
by
is
the
a
new
decision
council?
of the new council. This council is only working through next year's election arrangements.
Okay, any further questions? So we've got a series of recommendations. Is someone prepared to move? Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Deputy Mayor Atkinson. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Williams?
No, I think we've had a wee bit of talk of discussions about everything, and we've had no, I think by the number of submissions we had, most people think it's working reasonably well, so thank you for sorting. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think that given another 3 years, we will be in a much better position to either move, stay the same, or do whatever it may be again. But I don't. 3 years is not a long period, so I think that this is the sensible decision for now. And basically, it is a bit of a holding pattern until such time as we learn more about what is or not happening about local government, the reforms that we have in front of us, and the numbers of the census, which is extremely important. I mean, they haven't been reliable for some time. So to actually have those numbers 100% would be much better. I mean, I think just about all of us, even at the review panel, have grappled with some of the numbers that you anecdotally know in your mind and the ones that are put before us. But the census numbers are what we need to work off.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I have quite a lot of sympathy for the submitter, Mrs Mather, because the fact that in the last representation review 6 years ago, Woodend Ashley was the one that disappeared, which was my former ward. And since that time, I do feel that the Woodend Pegasus area has lacked local knowledge around the council table. However, the boundaries change all the time, and quite often they change, and the councillor who's living in that ward ends up outside that ward, or they move wards, such as I did living in Cast and then still representing Woodend Ashley. So unfortunately, it is a reality that we are councillors at large, and we do need to make sure that we're in touch with every single community. It does seem a little bit, now that we're getting so much growth in that eastern area, particularly with Ravenswood subdivision coming on stream, it's going to get to the point where Woodend Pegasus is actually going to have more population than the Oxford Ahoka ward, potentially. And so therefore, for them not to have a single representative does seem a little bit unfair. However, as everyone has stated, we're in a bit of a state of flux at the moment. The die was cast in the last representation review, which is when this perhaps should have been addressed, but the decision was made to go to 3 wards. And I think to change it now would be a bit premature, as other speakers have stated. I do encourage, obviously, those in the Kaiapoi Woodend ward to make sure that they are completely in touch with their community board members, because those are your eyes and ears for people. I'm in the Rangira Ashley and I don't know what's going on in Okuku, so therefore I use my community board to be eyes and ears for me in that area to make sure that I'm fully in touch with my ward area. So under that basis, I do think that there was not much else we could do given the current situation, but the growth in population in the Woodend Pegasus area is going to necessitate some change, probably in the next review.
I'm just going to, I'd like to speak just to say that I support the recommendation that's here. Can I firstly start by acknowledging both Sarah and Emma, and I realise that this will come back to our further council meeting, but Sarah and Emma have done an excellent job in helping us through this exercise. It was clear when we were going through it that really perhaps at this point lack of good census information, and that there had been a very thorough review done last time, that it was going to be probably just some minor changes that were required, and we have done those in this, well, that has been recommended there. I understand what the submitter mentioned before. That's not really a position I'm prepared to look at right at the moment. I certainly understand the points that are made, but I think that's something for another matter. Look, I know from this table how well you all advocate for your communities and how well connected you are. And so I know what Councillor Barnett just said just then, but I know that the members that particularly that represent those wards that were mentioned certainly do their very best here at this table. So I just want to make that clear. Community boards are a very important function in this exercise, and one that I try to get to as many board meetings as I can and keep in touch with what's going on. We have regular meetings with the board chairs and the deputy chairs, and we have regular briefings which members attend. And I do try and encourage, where we have big issues, not just for the council but in board areas, that we do have joint briefings where it concerns those board areas, because it's actually, I'd rather have a joint conversation together at times, because we actually do get some reflections which are helpful to our consideration. So I just want to say that I understand the points that have been made, but I would just like to acknowledge that we do have a very well-functioning democracy here, and I think that goes back to what Councillor Williams said at the start, that we haven't had a large number, but large numbers don't necessarily mean that it's a representation either. It's actually the quality of the points that are made, and I think there's been some good quality points that have been brought forward, and that's probably a matter that should be considered by the next council. I'm presently, based on what I've read and what I understand of submissions as well, the present arrangements are serving us well with those minor changes, but that'll be a matter that we will further reflect when the report comes on the 2nd of November. So thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've read all the submissions and I found them quite interesting. They had different points. We have a full spectrum of opinion from electing councillors at large over the whole area, and in some ways that's not a bad system. Two, as what our submitter has presented today, perhaps having councillors more geographically based within their own local communities. So there is a big spectrum there. There is no perfect solution to what we're suggesting, and I feel, as previous speakers have indicated, that the present system is serving us as well as it can. It's not perfect, but I personally support the current system. I think in terms of the Kaiapoi Wood End ward, that the population growth, as mentioned earlier, with Ravenswood in particular, will balance those matters out. And at the end of the day, I think people elect the councillor that they think is going to serve them best, rather than, and I'm in the unusual position of not living in a particular ward, so you could say I'm independent in that sense. But I think everyone tries to connect with their communities and community boards, and whilst it's not perfect, I think the current system is working reasonably well, and I'm supportive of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Doody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I will occur with the next one for 3 years only. I do feel that we do need to, the next new councillors do need to really consider the number of people that are moving into the area, and you've got that large influx down the Wood End area, excuse me, but also rightly, excuse me, down the Hoka Mandel area that is starting to develop and grow more as well. So I think in 3 years' time, you need to have a really serious look at where your where your areas lie and rejig your wards accordingly.
Okay, further speakers? Right of reply, wait for you to get there. Right of reply, Councillor Williams. Okay, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of business. So at this point, I'll declare the hearing concluded. And we've got a briefing which is due to start at 2:30. We could possibly see if we could bring that forward, maybe.